detail, then dial your operator.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.
Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of The Mediator with me, your host, Brian West, here to give you the top 8 headlines and developing news stories that made it in this week. Now, as usual, I'll give you the top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that made it first, followed by a movie clip, a skit, a trailer, or something that's going on in the community, or maybe some pictures. And then I'll give you the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. So let's waste no time, folks. Let's get to it. Story number 1. Delphi Retirees are in the headlines, back in the headlines. Now, it was around election season when we last heard about Delphi Retirees. Well, because of Tim Ryan, they are back in the headlines. U.S. Rep. Tim Ryan is apparently trying to come up with a solution for Delphi retirees who lost their pensions 12 years ago. The local article is very brief, but gets straight to the point when discussing the losses incurred by Delphi retirees. The article goes on to point out why this story is staying alive and what local retirees are fighting for. Delphi Electric of Warren, Ohio filed for bankruptcy some years back and moved the majority of its production plants to Mexico. Now, this left many retirees still fighting for their pensions years later. Now, what got this story in is the fact that there are still some election promises that haven't been kept from when this story first broke way back in 2006. That's why this headline made it in this week. Story number 2, trying to lower 1,500 or so Liberty residents' water rates. Big headline. The story about how to lower water rates for 1,500 Liberty residents is hanging on. It's been staying alive. Gary Newbro, interim sanitary engineer for Trumbull County, is in talks with Gerard and introducing some new ideas on how to lower water rates, with discussions about a bulk water rate that will apparently lower the cost of Liberty customers' water bills. Now, at the moment, customers are paying $17.35 per 1,000 gallons. That's including a surcharge compared to Trumbull County customers who pay $8.22 per 1,000 gallons. This story is still developing, and that's why it made it to the top 8 this week. Story number 3. Youngstown gets a grant aimed at diversity in the local schools. Youngstown is set to receive a $70,000 grant from the Ohio Department of Education to help the district attract more African Americans to teach in the Youngstown city schools. So far, the city plans to use the funds to recruit minority teachers by attending job fairs at historically black colleges and universities. Big headline. That's why I made it this week. The push for diversity continues on. Story number 4, coming to the aid of mayors. Officials and former officials are coming together to lead a new foundation that has made some headlines out of Columbus. The foundation will provide policy and research as a nonprofit bipartisan advocacy group specializing in elevating Ohio's cities and metropolitan areas. The group was founded in 2016, but highlights ongoing efforts by former and current officials to meet the needs of residents throughout Ohio. They're doing everything they can to make you happy. That's why story number 4 made it in this week. Story number 5. Tax abatements a no-go for Youngstown schools. Youngstown City Board of Education voted 4-3, shooting down a tax abatement request for additional work at an $8.6 million housing project at YSU. The 100% 15-year tax abatement would have allowed Hallmark Campus Communities and Fortress Real Estate Company to complete new construction of a 162-bed student housing building on the west side of YSU's campus, according to a local Vindicator article. Now, the key talking point in this article is the fact that local officials want property owners to pay their fair share. We can even look at the chill camp plant that is currently under fire from Mayor Jamel Tito Brown. Now, this is when it comes to property taxes and abatements, tax abatements. Not the city giving them the go on not having to pay taxes for a certain amount of time. Now, the article goes on to point out why board members voted against the abatement. Big article, and that's why I made it in this week at number 5. Story number 6. City looking for more emergency healthcare workers. Youngstown. Youngstown Fire Chief Barry Finley this week noted that the city needs more emergency medical service workers because they are shorthanded. The local Vindicator article is very interesting and really has a point according to who can get to local emergencies faster, or the fastest, in regards to the ambulance compared to the fire department. Now, according to the article, which is very in-depth about the current needs of the fire chief, who goes on by requesting that council provide the funds to hire 5 additional firefighters, 1 more assistant chief, 1 more fire inspector, 1 more shop mechanic, and he wants additional medical equipment. The article almost paints a picture as if the fire department is bumping heads with local paramedics, but the fire chief does make a valid point of the evolving job of a firefighter. Now, one key talking point in this article is that with a decline in the number of fire calls, fire departments across the country are increasingly providing emergency medical services. Now, it is also good to note how busy Youngstown's fire department has been compared to other fire departments. So this is a big headline, and that's why I made it this week. This story is still developing. Story number 7 in the top 2 local headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Moving on up to the east side. I finally got a piece of the pie. Youngstown has plans to combat crime. Story number 7. To combat crime and a number of unsolved cases, Youngstown plans to implement a card system. The system will be put in place so residents will not be afraid to come forward and report information about crime that takes place within the community. The card system will also be put in place to reduce crimes, according to one local article. Now, Youngstown police also plan to implement body cameras, which was recommended by residents at a town hall meeting last year. Body cameras have really changed the way police do business in many circumstances. Now, in many circumstances, it has also exposed how police engage with the public. Now, you have to think Youngstown already has had a lot of problems with gun problems, and the community trying to be almost similar to what has been going on to news by relating and getting to police to do better with their job. But the fact is that as long as guns remain on the streets and people continue to use them in violent ways, the police will continue to have problems. That's why story number 7 made it to the top 2 this week. Story number 8 and the top local headline and developing news story that made it this week. Step right up. I got news here, just what you need to get by, just what you need to know, what you need to learn, what you need to love about your life. News, baby. News, something to talk about. Just give them something to talk about. Story number 8. Youngstown's mayor is making financial plans for the next 20 years. Youngstown has approved a spending bill of about $176 million. The budget does not include any capital improvement projects, nor does it include the $88,629,500 from the latest federal COVID-19 relief bill, which will be given to the city in split payments. Half will arrive in May and the other half in May of 2022, according to a local report. Now, the city has until December 31st of 2024 to spend the money. Now, there are also stipulations regarding how the money can be spent. The money can go towards revenue loss, preventing cuts to government services, premium pay for essential employees, and infrastructure projects, including water, sewer, and broadband. Now, according to one local Vindicator article, Mayor Jamel Tito Brown wants to create a comprehensive plan, a strategic comprehensive plan for the next 20 years, including 500 blighted projects in the city, improving housing quality. And he also wants to clean up the corridors, develop a youth employment program, and he wants to bring in a full-scale grocery store and improve transit accessibility with most of the money probably. Now the city is projected to end the year with $4,607,322 surplus. So they plan on ending the year with a surplus, according to recent reports. So that's why Story Number 8 made it to the top this week, because we're talking about money. Money is good. Money can be spent. Money can be loved. Money can cause problems. That's why Story Number 8 made it in this week. Well, those are our top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that made it in this week. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back with the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. You're in the Mediator with me, Brian West. I'll be right back.
If you need help, then dial your operator.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.
If you want to check out the stories that almost made it in or did make it in, go to our Twitter feed on our website. Check out everything. All of the sources are there. And go to the website. It's method8inc.com, method8inc.com, where you can buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or just sponsor the program.